Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back into another edition of Keytime Sports. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. Keytime Sports right here on YouTube, Key City Sports on Instagram, and the Key on Millions.co. So, it is week 2, but before I get into week 2, we all know what today is, September 11th, around this time, exactly around this time and moment 24 years ago, two planes went into the Twin Towers and pretty much rocked the nation and the world all at the same time. So, what I'm going to do and what we are going to do here at Keytime Sports today is give everybody 15 seconds of silence before we get into week 2. So, 15 seconds of silence now. All right, now it is week 2 of the NFL season. Tonight, the Washington Commanders and the Green Bay Packers kick it off. Now, Washington Commanders, we all know that coming into last season, we didn't expect much from, but they make it to the NFC Championship game. They have a bunch of resources at quarterback position, at wide receiver position, running back, tight end, offensive line, defense, and everything. Washington Commanders, this is the kind of matchup. They didn't have too many big matchups last season early in the season. Now this is the first big matchup that the Washington Commanders have had this early in the season. I'm going to say I don't even know when to put an exact year on it because it has been so long. Now, as of right now, the Washington Commanders are a 3.5 point underdog against Green Bay. We all know that Green Bay, they had a good showing Sunday with the Detroit Lions. So one thing I can say is Green Bay, with them having home field advantage, I think that Green Bay is just the better team. And Washington Commanders, they will keep it close. They will keep it close. And I would not be surprised if the Washington Commanders win this game tonight. But Green Bay at home early in the season, Green Bay hardly ever loses an early season game at home. But anything can happen. But I'm sticking to what I said prior to this. Green Bay is winning tonight's game. The next game I'm going to cover is Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cincinnati Bengals. Both of these teams had two both of these teams had wins in week 1 against, I'm going to say, subpar competition. Jaguars played the Carolina Panthers. We already know it seemed like the Carolina Panthers are projected to be on a downward spiral this year. Cleveland, we already know how Cleveland is. Cincinnati, if you win this game, Cincinnati, this is the first time in seven. No, I'm not gonna say that. This will be the first time in 6 years that you start off 2-0. Last time you started off 2-0 was 2019. 2019, and the Bengals made it to the playoffs and lost. So 2-0, 2-0, it doesn't hold any weight. It's what you do when you get to the playoffs. And as far as the Jaguars, Liam Cohen, the era started off great with a win over the Panthers, but we got to see if the Jaguars are one of those powerhouses in the AFC, like a Kansas City, the Los Angeles Chargers, the Cincinnati Bengals, like I've been saying, the Baltimore Ravens, and teams like that, because we all know that the Jaguars, they the new kids on the block. And I know it's tough for a lot of people to comprehend that, but last couple of years, Jaguars, they done had over 25 injuries on their team over the last couple of years. So this game, the The Bengals are a 3.5 point favorite, and I think the Bengals will win this game. I just don't think that the Jaguars will be capable enough of neutralizing Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Joe Burrow all at the same time, because we know that that is the Bengals' big three in Cincinnati. So I got the Cincinnati Bengals winning that game. The next game I'm going to cover is the New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys. And y'all already know who I'm going with in this game. I am not a homer, but I am not biased neither. But the Cowboys are just the better team than the New York Giants. New York Giants, they couldn't get nothing going last week versus the Washington Commanders. And it seemed like they ain't going to be able to get nothing going this season because offensively, they don't know who they are going to start at quarterback. Now, Brian Dable, he's been saying that Russell Wilson is the quarterback for this season. But if Russell Wilson keep on having bad games, they are going to have to switch the quarterback. Now, everybody in New York, I've been looking at New York Weekly, Giants Weekly, and all that, and they've been saying Jackson Dart, put Jackson Dart in the fold. I'm like, no, you don't want to put Jackson Dart in the fold because over the last 10 years for the New York Giants, it hasn't been the quarterback. It hasn't been quarterback play. Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to be like, they're going to be shocked that I said that. But for the last 10 years for the New York Giants, their main problem has been the offensive line because New York Giants made the playoffs in 2022 behind some below average offensive play. Outside of that, it had been 5, 6 years before they even made it to the playoffs because it was 18, then 22. Now you get to the point where jobs are on the line in New York. They are. Brian Dable, you've been there 5 years. I know John Mara, I know John Mara is behind you 100%, but the fans are starting to get tired of, you know, maybe next year, maybe next year. I'm just going to say this. For a team, for a head coach to be saying, well, we may not have it this year, maybe next year, but he says that every year. For a coach to say that, he not the right coach for the job. And I'm going to just bring it back to this. In everyday life, if you want to be successful in everyday life, you can't just keep putting off stuff and saying, well, I'm going to do it next year. I'm going to do it next year. I'm pretty sure y'all agree with what I'm saying. Now, the next year phase in the NFL, it's not a guarantee because 35% of the NFL, they always turn over from the previous year. So it might not even be a next year for Brian Dable. And that GM for the Giants, Joe Shane, I don't know what to say about him. He done been there 4 years and he done had over 55 draft picks and none of them have panned out well. Even his own children was saying that. Even his own children was saying that if he wants to win, go and get this guy, go and get that guy. He didn't even listen to his own children. So what does he? I'm trying to figure out what is his plan because the Giants, it seems like the Giants organization, they don't have a plan. The Giants owner, John Mara, he just sitting up there, writing checks here, writing checks there. This all has transpired after Saquon Barkley. Because Saquon Barkley, we all know he was with the Giants. Then Giants was just going to pay him $12 million. But he went to Philadelphia and got paid what he was worth. And now we all know that John Mara, he's having a tough time dealing with this situation. But if you would have just paid your guys up front before before the contract deadline came, you wouldn't have been in this situation. See, there are some owners when it comes to, paying their players, They don't want to pay him. They'll wait until the last minute. We all know we see that with Jerry Jones. We see that with these other owners. We see that with some of these owners that that are cheap. They ain't gonna pay their guys. The Bengals, you see that with the Bengals. They didn't start paying their players until last year. Also, the only I can say this, the only owner in the NFL that pays his guys up front 2 and 3 years before is the Philadelphia Eagles owner, Jeffrey Lurie. He is the right kind of businessman. If anybody need help doing proper business principles, take a page out of Jeffrey Lurie's book. When you have a guy that's on an expiring contract, go ahead and get that contract extension done 2 or 3 years prior to that expiration year. That's what it should be. But I done got off topic. I need to talk about the game. So the game, Dallas, I see them winning this game by 2 touchdowns. I've always said that, division games, they are going to be close than what they originally appear. As of right now, the Cowboys are a 5.5 point favorite. I think that it'll be 2 touchdowns that the Cowboys win by. And the New York Giants, they will still be at square zero. They haven't even made it to square one. I mean, you got giant players on the team, on the offense, you know, voicing their displeasure to the head coach, voicing their displeasure to the offensive coordinator, not calling the right plays. And I mean, you had one of your centers line up eligible in the first game versus the Washington Commanders, and he didn't even and the ball wasn't even going his way. So Brian Dable is in the same boat as Joe Judge. Now I'm pretty sure a lot of people don't even remember Joe Judge, but it's not even worth talking about. Not even worth talking about Joe Judge in this case. The next game I'm going to cover is the Chicago Bears and the Detroit Lions. Now, both of these teams are under charted waters right now. Both of them are under charted waters when it comes to how they played in the first game. Chicago, they were up 17-6 Monday night versus the Minnesota Vikings and lost. Detroit, offensively, they did not look like they had a pulse versus the Green Bay Packers last week. They didn't. So we all know that the Lions offense and defensive coordinators are gone. They are replaced with new offense and defensive coordinators. But there is one thing. As far as Jameer Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jameson Williams, excuse me, they didn't even crack 150 yards combined. They didn't. And I know that we are looking at this, we are talking about, well, it is just game one, it's just week one. But like I said, these early season games, they hold weight when it comes later on in the season in order to make the playoffs. So the Detroit Lions, they got to get it together. For the Chicago Bears, there's one thing that I want to say about the Chicago Bears, and then I'm going to give my prediction about who is going to win this game. The Chicago Bears, now, everybody keeps on asking about the grace period for Caleb Williams. The grace period for Caleb Williams was last year because he didn't have an offensive coordinator. He didn't have a competent running game, and he didn't have a head coach that was confident in his playing ability. Now, since you got the addition of Ben Johnson and y'all and the Bears are putting Ben Johnson's offensive techniques in the Bears system, now You got a grace period. The first couple of weeks is the grace period. But by the time week 7, week 8 get here, they should be in the groove of things in Chicago. They should be. Caleb Williams, he should be in the groove of things when it comes to playing against top-notch competition. Now, I got the Detroit Lions winning this game. I think that I think in this case the Chicago, by default, they are the fourth best team in the NFC North by default, because you got Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit, and then there's Chicago. So I got the Detroit Lions winning this game. And the Detroit Lions are a 5.5 point favorite at home. The next game I'm going to cover is Los Angeles Rams and the Tennessee Titans. One thing that I can say is Cam Ward, he showed a lot of promise his first game. He did. He showed a lot of promise. And also with the Rams. The Rams, their offense wasn't great in week 1. 14-9. That's what they won there. That's what they won over the Texans by 14-9. So when we look at the Los Angeles Rams, is their offense that bad, or was it just week 1? This is why I don't focus on week 1 too much, because you have some lucky wins in week 1, and then you got some teams that shouldn't even lost in week 1. And one of the teams that shouldn't have lost in week 1 but did was the Cowboys. But like I said, I'm gonna get into that a little bit later on. But as of right now, the Rams and the Titans, I can see this being a close game. The Rams are a 5.5 point favorite. I guess the Vegas lines, they like that number 5.5, because ever since this show started, I've been saying 5.5 ever since the show started. So the Tennessee Titans, fourth best in the AFC West. Not the AFC West, but the AFC South. The Titans are the fourth best team. You have the Colts, Jaguars, Titans, and Texans. Now, the Texans' offense didn't look too great, but that's just week 1. Now, the Texans, I'm going to get to them later on in the show. They are headed down to Tampa. Now, Tampa, they got a top-notch defense. So we are going to see whether the Texans are one of them teams that we should look out for, or we are going to see the Texans crumble. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say this. Last month, there was a guy at ESPN, his name is Ryan Clark. He said the Houston Texans would make it to the AFC Championship. Now, I want somebody to clip this. Ryan Clark said AFC Championship, Houston Texans would make it to the AFC Championship. I just don't see that happening. I don't know what Ryan Clark sees with the Houston Texans, but the Houston Texans' way to the AFC Championship game is tough. If they don't have home field advantage, they got to go to teams like Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh gonna make it to the playoffs. Baltimore. You got Kansas City. You got Buffalo. And you also got the Chargers. Now, the Chargers, they are one of those teams, well, maybe they can win in the playoffs if it's at home. But, both the Chargers and the Texans are dome teams. So that game could go either way. But as far as the Houston Texans making it to the AFC Championship game, no, my brother, no. I know you played football and you already be like, if somebody, question your intelligence about the game, but Houston Texans to the AFC Championship game, I just don't see it. But hey, it's only week 2. We got a long time between now and the AFC Championship game. So back to what I was saying. The Los Angeles Rams and the Tennessee Titans. I got the Los Angeles Rams winning this game. The next game I'm going to cover, another team that is going through some turmoil, and it's only the start of week 2, is the Miami Dolphins. They are playing against the New England Patriots. So, Mike McDaniel is already on the hot seat. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and say this. Reportedly, back in May, I found out that Mike McDaniel was already on the hot seat going into 2025. So, this is nothing new. He's been on the hot seat for the last 3 months, allegedly speaking. I got to say allegedly because, in this world, in this day and time, everybody want to hold your words to the fire, and if you are wrong when it comes to your expertise, when it comes to reporting, they want to hold your words to the fire, and they not gonna let you live it down. So I'm gonna be saying allegedly speaking, but y'all could go ahead and look up on Google, and y'all will see that Mike McDaniel is in the hot seat. Now back to the Miami Dolphins as a whole. Offensively, they are bad. Tua, he can't stay healthy. Ever since he's been in the NFL, he has been injured an average of 6 games a season. No matter what, 6 games a season, Tua Tagovailoa is injured. He not gonna be out. He is going to be out. So the quarterback play in Miami is at a crossroads. What do? Do you put the rookie in that you got in the draft, Quinn Ewers, and let him navigate the offense? Or do you stand by Tua and just let the wheels fall? Well, excuse me, let the chips fall where they may. If I'm gonna say this, if I'm Stephen Ross, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, if y'all ain't know that, Stephen Ross, owner of the Miami Dolphins, if I'm Stephen Ross, I am going to give Mike McDaniel 6 more games. And if I see if he is bringing the team down, I am going to fire him. Now, I'm not calling for nobody's job, but we all know that Stephen Ross, he has a history of firing his coaches in season. He fired Joe Philbin in season. He fired Tony Sparano in season. Tony Sparano, he fired him after 7 games, and that was in 2011. Joe Philbin, he got fired after 4 games in 2014. So excuse me, not Joe Philbin, but Stephen Ross, he isn't afraid to pull the trigger in the middle of the season when it comes to getting a new head coach. So count your days, Mike McDaniel. You done had 4 years. You done had 4 years to do something in Miami. You done had 4 years. So the one thing about the Miami Dolphins is the Miami Dolphins, when it comes to their week 1 hiccups, is this just about week 1, or is this about the rest of the season? I believe this is about the rest of the season. I don't see Tyreek Hill being on this team by Thanksgiving. I just don't. Because he's already, voicing his displeasure, not being used right in the offense. The last time he had 100-plus game was early last season. So Miami Dolphins, they done got rid of a lot of top dogs on the offense and the defense. So the Miami Dolphins are going into turmoil, America. I'm going to just go ahead and say that. And a lot of people are saying their playoff door is closing. That playoff door been closed because they can't win in the playoffs. I mean, they are allergic to 50-degree weather because historically, I'm gonna give y'all a stat. Historically, the Miami Dolphins, they have played over 300 games in temperatures that are 50 degrees and below. I'm going to tell y'all how many games they've won. They haven't won double digit games. Now just let that sit there. Just think about that. The team has played over 300 games in a cold weather climate, and they haven't even won 10 games. To be exact, they've only won 6. And those 6 games were by luck. Those 6 games were by luck. So Miami, only way teams that beat Miami, put them in a cold weather climate, you can beat Miami. That's all it is. I have never said that about a team that you get them out of that climate, you already done beat them. But it's like that. So I got the Miami Dolphins winning Sunday's game, but I would not be surprised if they lose because they're only a 1.5 point favorite. And the sky is falling in Miami right now when it comes to the state of the Miami Dolphins, as far as what the players are thinking about. And when it comes to Tua, a lot of players, it seems like they are getting to the point where the confidence in Tua, it's not there like it was a couple of years ago. It's not there. So that's all I got to say about the Miami Dolphins. The next game I'm going to cover is the San Francisco 49ers and the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans Saints projected to be the worst offense and team in the NFL. And in week 1, they only put up 13 points. So they pretty much on their way, 13 points. And then you got San Francisco. Now, San Francisco, they are dealing with injuries. Reportedly, Brock Purdy is a long shot to play in the Saints game. They got Mac Jones in the helm. They may have Mac Jones start this game. I believe Brock Purdy is a game time decision for this game. But the 49ers, they should be able to win this game without any problem. But this is, like I said, any given Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and sometimes Saturday, later on in the season, a team can be beat. A team can be beat. But if I was a betting man, which sometimes, and I do mean sometimes I am, I would go with the 49ers. So all my sports betting men and women out there, if you gonna look at this game like I am gonna look at it, bet San Francisco and you will win the bet, because the New Orleans Saints, they gonna find some way to mess up their momentum in this game. I can already see it. So I got the San Francisco 49ers winning that game. The next game I'm going to cover, the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets. This game may be the closest game in week 2. And the reason why I say that is because last week, New York Jets was on the cusp of winning versus the Steelers. But they lost on a 60-yard field goal from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Buffalo got lucky. They had to do a Herculean effort last week in order to win their game over the Ravens, being down by 15 points with just 4 minutes left, and basically pretty much making history, because teams that are up by 15, that are down by 15 points, had a winning percentage of 0, 277 and 0. But that was before last week's Buffalo win. Now it's 277 and 1. Buffalo, I still got Buffalo winning this game. The New York Jets, hey, you got a different quarterback, but you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose, and I think. See, when it comes to the New York Jets, I projected them to win 7 or 8 games, and that's it. That's it. That's all. Now we all know that New York Jets. It's been. I'm not. I sound like a broken record bringing this up, but it's been 15 years. Well, excuse me, 14 years since they made the playoffs. If they don't make the playoffs this year, it would mark 15 years. So, I mean, they are just in purgatory. A purgatory franchise, a illegitimate franchise, whatever adjective you want to use. The the Jets and the Giants, both New York teams have been putrid, and they are not even in the mediocrity phase of being a competent franchise when it comes to putting a consistent winner out there on the field. Why do you always think coming into every season when I say, well, what we gonna get from the New York Jets? What we gonna get from the New York Giants? Because we don't know. Because last time the Jets and the Giants were relevant and in the playoffs, the iPhones wasn't even invented yet. Steve Jobs was still living. I'm just saying, Steve Jobs was still living. Now, that's all I got to say. Buffalo Bills going to win versus the New York Giants. The next game I'm going to cover, the Seattle Seahawks versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Aaron Rodgers had a vintage moment last week. 244 yards, 4 touchdowns, 22 of 30. Now, we don't need Aaron Rodgers to be that super Aaron Rodgers like he was back in 2018, 2019, and 2020. But if we can get an Aaron Rodgers like this on a consistent basis throughout the rest of this season, the Steelers, they might be able to win 1 or 2 playoff games. And we already know that Mike Tomlin, he's always had a spot of success for Aaron Rodgers. He's always had a space of grace for Aaron Rodgers because I remember when Aaron Rodgers was in Green Bay and every time the Packers used to play the Steelers, and him and Aaron Rodgers, Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers would always be chopping it up. And Aaron Rodgers told him one day, I would like to come play for you if that's possible. Now, Aaron Rodgers is in the Steel City and he done got the fan base on his side. Now, let's see what they can do as far as a momentum standpoint coming into week 2 because the Seattle Seahawks, yeah, they lost. They lost last week versus the 49ers. Pittsburgh Steelers are a 2.5-point favorite. I believe that the Pittsburgh Steelers, they are at home, first home game of the season. I don't see them losing this game. And I see the Pittsburgh Steelers offense doing a rendition of what they did versus the Jets. I'm not saying that they are going to score 30-plus points, but I could see the Pittsburgh Steelers scoring 27 to 30 points. The least I'm going to give them is 24 because we all know that Aaron Rodgers, he got DK Metcalf at the helm, and you know that guy, when it comes to a jump ball, he is going to get it 85% of the time. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, I got the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Seattle Seahawks. The next game I am going to cover, the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens. Now, Baltimore Ravens, they are going to win. I don't know if it's going to be in a blowout or if the game is going to be close. But Cleveland Browns. What what you gonna do? You know Joe Flacco ain't gonna be there long. You know Dylan Gabriel, he gonna have to go somewhere. Like I said, third on the list is Shador. Come on, Cleveland, what we doing? Because you got to see both of the quarterbacks. You got to see what Shador have, and you got to see what Dylan Gabriel have, because the Cleveland Browns already have the number one pick going into April's draft in 2026. So you got to see what you have on tape. You got to let Gabriel put whatever he going to put on tape, and you got to let Shador put what he going to put on tape. Now, the game versus the Bengals, the Browns had a chance to win that game. The field goal kicker missed a couple field goals late in the game. But like I said, there's always one thing that I can say is, instead of kicking a long distance field goal, we already know that Shador would have been able to give the Browns a much closer field goal, so the kicker wouldn't have to kick a 48, 49, or a 50-yard field goal. He could have kicked a 32 or even a 35-yard field goal, and the Browns would have won the game. But like I said, that it all comes down to coaching. Like I be telling people, football, being a coach, being a football coach is not hard. You got your top-notch players, you got your average players, and then you got your below-average players. If you know what your top-notch players are capable of doing, and if you got a top-notch player that you know should be starting, go ahead and start them. Now, we all know that Shador is just sitting back like this on the bench and just waiting his turn. Sooner or later, the Browns are going to start Shador. Sooner or later. Now, I heard something this morning. I know it ain't true, but they had said, but somebody, I don't know who it is, or the name is not even worth mentioning. They said that Shador was on his way to the Miami Dolphins. Now, my sources, I ain't heard nothing about that, and it's just 9:38 a.m. I ain't heard nothing about that. But I do hear there is teams that are calling the Browns trying to get Shador. So nothing has been finalized yet. But like I said, if Cleveland trades away Shador, then they done traded away their most prized possession in about 30 years. So, Cleveland Browns, do the right thing. Put Shador on the field, because if you don't have Shador on the field, somebody is going to give the Browns a trade that they cannot refuse to pass up. Shador Sanders is going to be shipped, and the Browns are going to be second guessing their whole organization and their business principles when it comes to drafting players in the future. So as of right now, though, Baltimore Ravens are a 11.5 point favorite versus the Browns. I believe that the Baltimore Ravens cover that and they win by 2 touchdowns. I do. The next game I'm going to cover, the Denver Broncos and the Indianapolis Colts. Daniel Jones, I'm going to just go ahead and say this. Daniel Jones, we got to, but before we say that Daniel Jones is a good quarterback, we got to see what he did against the Miami Dolphins. We got to see that on a consistent basis. Now, I know what I said early last month about Daniel Jones not being a good quarterback. All right. I'm a little bit on the fence from what I seen against the Miami Dolphins. But let's see if he can do it on a consistent basis, because now I'm hearing all these nicknames that he got, Indiana Jones or Indy Jones and all this other stuff. And they making it to where that, you know, he kind of like that, but we only got one game on tape. One game on tape. Come back to me when it's week 8, week 9, and if he has averaged over 250 yards passing each game, 3 touchdowns, and a quarterback rating of, I'm going to say, 141 on a scale of on a scale of 0 to 158.3, then come back to me. But it's just one game, and it was not against a good defense. Miami Dolphins, we already know that they're going to have a tough time trying to make it to the playoffs, and not even trying to make it to the playoffs, but trying to stay relevant. As far as the Denver Broncos, hey, we already know what the Denver Broncos are. Denver Broncos project to have one of the top defenses in the NFL. They got Bo Nix, they got Cortland Sutton, they got running backs, two good running backs, and they got Sean Payton at the helm, who is an offensive guru, an offensive play calling wizard. I believe that the Denver Broncos somehow win this game. I do. Because Indianapolis, they were fortunate enough to get the win over the Miami Dolphins, because coming into last week's game versus the Miami Dolphins, I already knew that, hey, I said Miami Dolphins, they might have a chance at winning this game, and then they could possibly, come out there and lay an egg, and that is exactly what they did. So I got the Denver Broncos in this game, and the Denver Broncos are a 1.5 point favorite. Denver Broncos, get them Broncos to start riding. Get them Broncos to start riding and get everything when it comes to, because the Broncos, they are another team that could make it to the playoffs. And I believe that they are going to make it to the playoffs. I do. The next game that is on the schedule is the Carolina Panthers and Arizona Cardinals. Now, Carolina is in the same boat as they were last year. They didn't get blown out, but they did not look great on offense in week 1 versus the Jaguars. They gave up 6 sacks versus the Jaguars. And Bryce Young has been up and down throughout his career. Don't take him out of the fold, Panthers, because you did that last season, and it almost seemed like you was messing with his confidence. So the Panthers, they not going to take Bryce Young out the fold. And if they do, I am going to have a problem with it. Because Carolina, we already know that Carolina, they don't wow you with nothing that they put on tape. I mean, even when you see their highlights, they don't wow you. They don't. And then you got this team in Arizona. See, Arizona is like that one person. I'm going to just go back to, the family member sense. Arizona Cardinals, they are like that one person where in the family where that the job they at, they can't go no higher than where they are at. And then that they have other jobs that comes and try and give them a job offer, but they like what they doing and they are comfortable with what they are doing and they don't want to go to a different job. But then after a while, they get tired with the position that they are in or the place they are at. And then they start thinking about, man, I should have went on ahead and took that job when I had the chance. That's the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona Cardinals, we have been waiting for quite a few years for them to take the next step. Now, 3 years ago, they made it to the playoffs with Jonathan Gannon at the helm. And since then, it's been missed playoffs. They missed the playoffs 2023. 2024, they missed the playoffs. And in 2022, they missed the playoffs. Last time the Cardinals made the playoffs was 2021. And you are at that point where Kyler Murray, he is still a good quarterback, but Kyler Murray, he is on the back end of his career. He doesn't have too many seasons left. And the Cardinals, they need to start looking towards the future when it comes to quarterbacks. They do. So this game right here, this is probably the one game that if I was a betting person, I would put it as a pick 'em. But the Arizona Cardinals are a 6.5 point favorite, and I got the Arizona Cardinals winning this game. Now, the main game of week 2 is the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. We all know what this matchup looked like last season in the Super Bowl. The Kansas City Chiefs did not run a play inside of Philadelphia territory until the fourth quarter last season. And we are getting to a point where Kansas City, they didn't look too great against the Chargers. They didn't look too great against the Eagles last season. And even the Buffalo Bills in the AFC Championship game, they didn't look great. I mean, when it comes to their offense, they don't stretch the field like they used to. Everything is just 15 to 20 yards. Maybe you have a 40 or 50-yard pass here and there at times. But the Kansas City Chiefs offense is pedestrian. And I know I got a lot of Kansas City fans right here on YouTube. I even got some Kansas City fans on TikTok that look at my stuff. But they have already came to the realization where Kansas City ain't as hot as they once were. But the last time the Kansas City Chiefs started out 0-2 was 2014. And they didn't make the playoffs. So this probably is a must-win for the Kansas City Chiefs, because when you look at the Kansas City Chiefs schedule, I'm going to show y'all who else the Kansas City Chiefs have on their schedule. Now, this week, they got the Eagles. Next week, the Giants, they going to win that one. Then you have the Ravens in week 4. Then you have the Jaguars. Now, the Jaguars, I just said a few minutes ago, the Jaguars look pretty good on offense and defense. So that might be a tough outing for them. And that's on a Monday night. Then you have the Lions. We all know that the Lions, they ain't look too great, but by the time the Lions play the Chiefs, they are going to look better. Then you have a division rival, the Raiders, Washington Commanders, Bills, Broncos, Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Cowboys ain't look too bad. Now, the schedule for the Chiefs just got a little bit tougher after every team that we saw for week 1. But for this game, and I do mean for this game, if there is one quarterback that can bring his team from a 0-2 record and put them in the playoffs and possibly win his 4th championship, it would be Patrick Mahomes. It would be. But as far as wide receivers, you got Marquise Hollywood Brown. He's got an injury. You got Xavier Worthy. He's got a shoulder injury. Juju Smith-Schuster, he was non-existent in the game versus the Chargers, but it's just week 1. And then you have Travis Kelce, who only had 3 receptions. Now, this game, I'm expecting a vintage game from Kansas City. I mean, one of those games where the defense takes control and the offense, they pick and choose which spots to, break the game wide open. But I would be surprised if Kansas City lost this game, because Kansas City would be in the same position like they were in 2014. Starting off 0-2, losing a game in the division already, putting yourself behind the 8 ball, and now you're having to catch up. And you got tough teams on the schedule. I just named off a few of them when it comes to the Chiefs' schedule. So I got the Chiefs in this game. Plus, it's at Arrowhead Stadium. And the Chiefs are an underdog. For the second time in the Patrick Mahomes era, the Chiefs are an underdog at home. That adds fuel to the fire. Now, the Chiefs, y'all gonna have to win this game no matter what. It's a must do without fail because you cannot go down 0-2. You cannot go 0-2 and you have the Jaguars on your schedule, the Ravens on your schedule, the Broncos on your schedule, the Chargers on your schedule, the Bills on your schedule. That's 7 games that you got on your schedule that could go either way. So the Chiefs must do without fail win on Sunday. Sunday night football, Atlanta Falcons and the Minnesota Vikings. Now this could easily be a pick'em game too, because we don't know what we're going to see from Atlanta and Michael Penix Jr. We already know what we've seen from J.J. McCarthy. His first ever game was Monday night. He led a comeback drive and he won his first game in the form of a comeback. I think when it comes to Justin Jefferson, or AKA Jetta, as they like to call him, I think Justin Jefferson will have a great game. I believe Jordan Addison, the other Minnesota Vikings wide receiver, will have a good game. J.J. McCarthy, he will have a good game. And I expect the Minnesota Vikings to win, but I would not be surprised if Atlanta came to Minnesota and won. I would not be surprised. So I got the Minnesota Vikings winning this game. And for Monday Night Football, we have a double header. We got Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Houston Texans. And we got the Los Angeles Chargers versus the Oakland Raiders. I got for the Tampa, Baker Mayfield has resurrected his career. Houston Texans offense looked terrible last week versus the Rams. I'm expecting a rebound effort from the Houston Texans. As of right now, according to ESPN Bet, they are a 2.5-point favorite. Let's see if Baker Mayfield can do what he did against the Falcons, against the Texans, because still, Baker Mayfield has trouble with consistency. He hasn't been consistent throughout his career because it's like every other game he'll have a good game. First game he had 3 touchdowns, and then the next game he could just have 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions. So we don't know what we are going to see from Baker Mayfield consistently when it comes to being able to put up numbers the way he did versus Atlanta on a week-to-week basis. So I got the Houston Rockets winning on Monday Night Football. And the last game of the week, I got Los Angeles Chargers and the Las Vegas Raiders. We got Jim Harbaugh versus Pete Carroll. We know them two coaches don't like each other. This goes all the way back when USC was beating up on Stanford. And it still reigns supreme to this day. I got the Los Angeles Chargers winning this game. I believe the Los Angeles Chargers rushing defense, rushing defense will stop Ashton Genty in his tracks. Right now, Los Angeles Chargers are a 3.5-point favorite. I believe they cover and win this game. And with that, those are my week 2 odds and predictions. Please like, comment, share, subscribe to Keytime Sports right here on YouTube. Go follow Key City Sports on Instagram and follow the Key at Keiwond Dowell on millions.co. It's week 2. Let's see. Can the week 1 winners keep this momentum up? And remember, everybody, one last thing. The key is always on time.